Come on in, we love you all. The sun is brightening up here in Lapa Hoi Hoi on the big rock where Mauna Loa and Kilauea. So in the morning, sometimes a lot comes to me and I share it. So I was going to cover a lot because I rotate out a lot of things that I don't want to be held captive by, because when you realize that you represent the law of one, which is essentially meaning that I am what love is. It goes on forever, gifting electrons, right? Which means we're always giving love wherever we go because that's our mirror, right? So if these things come to me to share them, that others, if they can translate that as value because of having a higher state of awareness that others may not have than what we're aware of, they can become aware of. And then they can realize the methods by which they try to hold consciousness, soul consciousness, living spirit captive to their programming, to their networks. Okay. So I have to write some things down because otherwise it's just gone. It's just gone. Comes to you, it's just gone. Right? It's like input. Remember I mentioned, I think, in one video about filtering incoming signals of communication because you're a stereo receiver, antenna, and transmitter. Right. Okay. So I realized, like when I'm a little kid, I'm interfacing with all these other terminals and they're using little letter and number arrangements in which to communicate. So we used to have a lot of words that we used as children because I realized that when you're having to write the way they're telling you to log it into memory and record it, and now you're going to spit it back out and mimic it, which is like a copycat of the language and the numbers and the way that they're arranged, and how that relates to frequency and vibration and what you experience as visual information codes. And this is when you get into the calculator and the simplicity of least effort, if you will, or the minus slash the plus, which is the polarity game. Okay? So you're deciding what it is you want to put in memory, but there's so much information that is happening so fast that you realize you're running a lot of programming shit. Okay, but you don't have much choice, because I realized when I was a small child, there's absolutely no way in Hades would I ever fit into a place like this, no matter where I went, unless I went into nature where the energy was higher, or spending a lot of time in the ocean, being with the waves, rocking the cradle with mama, right? So you remember the water worlds in your mother's womb. Whoa, hey, that feels good. That's why hanging out by rivers helps clear a lot of memory stuff that doesn't feel good when you remember it. Because one of the things that I realized, and I mentioned this to Kunjoy, one of my friends in Thailand, a beautiful soul, by the way, and she was mentioning to me about pornography is now incoming. Delete it, delete it, delete it, delete it, delete it. It's not who I am. That's not what love is. Remember I mentioned before, if it's not what love is, it gets dumped. That's one standard. That's the law of one. I am the law of one. Love is a law. Period. So you know what love is, and you know what love isn't. Okay? So anything that isn't is going to get memory dumped. Right? So that you're always what? Balanced. Your energy budget is balanced. And what was difficult for this is that I realized, even in the Indian community, because I realized that I'm experiencing what you're experiencing. I don't want to experience what you're experiencing because what you're doing is a killing field. And I realized this was very difficult for me to grasp, even amongst the Indian community, because of my blood type, which is AB positive, which comes under the label and the letters called Arcturus or Arcturian, right? And another Lemurian and I used to joke around about this because I thought, you realize that eternal love, which is unconditional, as energy that is flowing through everything that's alive and living, means that if you are what that is, it means that I'm flowing through everything. The energy that's flowing through me, which is what love is flowing through everything else that love is flowing through. So, hey, you want to be a tree for a day? Right? Want to be a cat for a day? Want to be a lion for a day? Hey, draw something and say, hey, I just created something new, but love is in that, because if you are what love is, then what it is you created is what love is, because that's your mirror. So everything that is in nature is what I'm in love with, because why? That's called a healing artist, because plants are electrical and it's powerful energy. So I love all the colors, the shapes, and the forms, which represent what I see in my mirror that I'm giving love to, so that it grows, so it's healthy and it's thriving. And that's the nature of what love does. So I wrote a few things down here that maybe click, pop open other libraries that people are running through their minus/plus of what's being held in their cellular memories that they can relate to, such as what it means to translate a pure heart and an oversoul state of spiritual energy being. And that's why when I was a child growing up, I thought, it doesn't matter what you are, even though I love you, because that's what I am that I'm giving love to. But you realize they don't experience what you are, because you're experiencing the difference in speed, or what we call density, right? Which simply means that there is resistance in them through their heart and their circuits. They're not experiencing the same energy that I am, which means they're not experiencing the same reality the same way that I am at a higher rate of vibration. So if I am what love is, I realize I'm the law down here. Okay, so this was always the inverted part, because I'm seeing police cars around, and that's why they were painted black and white, the black and white checkerboard squares, and then you can get into the chess table, right? And you have a king and a queen. What do you think is more powerful? A king and a queen that join forces and become one, which is called mated. I'm mated. That's an oversoul. Okay, that means that the male is what love is, the female is what love is. That's just one vibration. Yeah. So that means it doesn't matter what I look like. It actually doesn't really necessarily relate to what we call gender in that sense. It simply means that you're mated, which means your light is always on, your bulb is always bright, you're lit. So when you realize you're going from your childhood to where I'm at right now, and for the last 10 years, I realized that I was on a pathway of what we call seeking purity, spiritual purity. And essentially what that means is that I lit myself on fire in 2016, which means you want to burn off all the goo codes that are preventing you from experiencing the purity from which love, unconditional love, eternal love, is an enormous amount of fire, because it's a blast furnace. Okay? So you're burning off those things that you know that do not serve you in order to be what you already know that you are, which is a free spirit. And a free spirit that is in that much fire is a spirit of fire. And then you have the living spirit in water worlds, DNA born in water worlds. Then you have the spirit of the wind. You have the spirits and the elementals. We're dancing with the elements, the little elementals that are in us. And that's what allow you, when you're doing a dance as a polarity integrator, to communicate with the elementals. And you can heal yourself. Okay? Not the least of which is all the other big living spirits that I'm connected to, that you are always with, because you choose a spiritual pathway to learn through powerful souls. And there is a big difference between a spiritual pathway, which is the right-hand pathway, to learn through powerful souls and living spirits, because we live in a spiritual world. Okay, so you want to free your spirit so you're not held captive. And when your mind's energy is not held captive to a psycho pathway, which is the mental pathway, and you couple that to artificial intelligence and controller types. A controller type wants to be the director of your life book, which means what it is that you experience, they control, they engineer, and that's pretty easy to explain how they do that. All you got to do is look at any movie that they produce out of Hollywood or any other film studio, which is mass media programming. So I wrote down a number of things here, and I do this just to air it out. Much in the same way when I'm dumping libraries of information that I'm holding on to of what comes to me, I used to write like what I'm using right here, spiral binder. I used to have stacks of them, process it out, release it, what doesn't serve you. Just get rid of it. Whatever you're holding in cellular memories doesn't serve you in reaching purity, trying to purify yourself from all the goo codes that you were held captive to that doesn't serve you. That was what I call how you were running to keep the system alive, because everywhere that you go, you realize there's an enormous amount of emotional trauma because all the corporations that are set up on this planet were designed to drain your energy. Okay? A doctor's not going to be able to make any money if you're not sick, either with a dentist or a doctor or any of their hospitals or anything else. So it's in their best interest to keep you in a state of what? Disharmony, which means that's distorted waves. So your radio set is not running in balance, or what we call equilibrium, between the minus / the plus, right? Which is called the law of least effort, or zero. Wow, man, I'm experiencing free energy. That free energy is what love is, because it goes on forever gifting electrons. So don't let them fool you with all the Wi-Fi stuff. Hey, man, we'll keep these batteries running because you know what? We got stuff out in space and we can keep these batteries full because we know how to do that. That's a psychopath. That's an Anunnaki. That's a Draco. That's how they perceive the universe that they live in. I can remember one time when Patty Broussard mentioned to me about they were doing something. I can't even remember what it was they were doing, but whatever it was that they were doing, she said that they went through a black hole the size of an atom. So I'm going, how'd they do that? Well, see, if you're running a steady state like a love vibration, then you already know your future, which means that's not going to happen. So I know they're not what I am, because you know that you represent the law of one, which is what love is. Right? So you know that, okay, so they're not running what love is as the energy that they use to experience who they are in now time, which means it's always on. The light is always on. Love is always on, because that's what you are. You're the law of one. So you know that they're not the law of one. Otherwise, that wouldn't have happened, would it? So I wrote a few things down here to see if it's just the way that I process stuff out, because it just comes and it's gone. And one was called here, I never fit in here ever. What love is by default. You become the law of one with Adam and Eve. Energy harvesting, killing fields, Dante Satori. And this got into something that I put up a while back about harvesting trees, because of the work, the love and service that trees do as mirrors, breathers, the big breathers. Okay? I don't cut down trees. I would never cut down a tree, because I hug trees, because I love trees. Okay? So I see them the same as I am, because if I'm giving love to a tree, why am I going to cut down something that I'm giving love to, which means now I'm losing voltage in me by what I do to a tree. So you can scale this of what it must have been when I was a child, looking around on the visual information field and realizing I didn't even want to be here, because this was a killing zone. Everything was being killed off. And I mentioned to a guy back in Reno, Nevada, leave everything in the ground. And then when I saw my clan mother, Karen Ann McDonald, put them, leave everything in the ground. Yeah, it's like a jump forward. So when you try and relate this kind of stuff, even amongst the spiritual community with the Native Indians that are here, this is what gets back to Dante Satori and stuff that I've mentioned before about when I was a child. About, do you even want to bring a child into this realm? This is a killing field, can't you tell? This is soul harvesting. I'm not going to bring another soul into this place. Do we even want to bring a child into this? And now you get into killing animals. Okay, I don't do that. I mentioned one time that I had a relationship with a cow as a playmate. Everything is a playmate. They're like relatives, which means the same love that represents what I am, which is what love is that goes on forever. I'm giving that to everything that is alive and living in nature. So now I have to translate that. Yeah, but I need energy to consume. Not really. Whoa, really? Well, now you get into the input side and the output side, and you're running a computer and a radio set, an antenna. DNA is an antenna. So this is when I realized that Robert O. Young was absolutely right when he talked about chlorophyll, structured water, salts, and oil. And I means tested that, even though you already know that's true. So I completely stopped eating everything else just to see what would happen, particularly when I was surrounded by people that had been, And so, yeah. So here are a few other things when I talked about reaction states: input, output, energy budget, minus/plus, right? Which means the negative side, the positive side of polarity, what you're choosing to put in memory, what you don't want to put in memory, what you don't want to experience, and what it means to really have free will and be the author of your own life book that represents something that you might want to share with your children. See, if I'm a mother or a father, I don't want to be telling bedtime stories to my children that let them know that the universe is all fucked up. Would you? Okay? Particularly if you start telling them stories about what you experienced down here. I would never want to tell my children what I experienced here. Why? Well, if they have any empathy in them, the chances are they're going to experience what I experienced down here, which was all the trauma. And I'm not in the business of causing trauma in my children by them having to experience what I communicate to them that traumatizes them. Now, scale that in a galaxy. Scale that amongst other galaxies. Scale that in a universe. Okay? Yeah, but it's important information, because think about what that will mean as a spiritual teacher. Well, if they're running a steady state love vibration, they realize, hey, now I become aware of what you become aware of because of what you experienced, but I didn't experience that. Now you get into what you want to choose to communicate and why. Now you get into value tagging and what you choose to hold in memory, what you don't want to choose in memory, right? And because they know how to load your memory. Okay? So when you are the law of one, you're always on fire. Okay? So you need some cooling. So this gets into reaction states, biochemical messengers, neurons, elementals, and how that relates to inner and outer communication with the spiritual world, with the spirit world. So for about 10 years, I used two words: spiritual purity. Seeking spiritual purity is a lot of fire to burn off all the glucose. And I'll leave you with this, because the clock on this timer says it's 13 minutes, 15 minutes. Oh man, no, I'm at 16 now. I'm at 17. Yellow Rose for Texas did a video on heaven doesn't think the same way the human mind does down here, because of the simplicity of it all, which is least effort, which is pure, eternal, unconditional love, seeking the least electrical density pathway to spread more love everywhere we are in living spirit in our mirror. So that mirror burns hot, and that's called spiritual purity, which is otherwise known as a pure heart. That's what the truth is. So when you're experiencing that, you realize you represent the highest truth, the highest law, because that's what love is, because you're doing no harm. Right? That's simple as it is. That's simple is, simple does. Remember Forrest Gump? So think about a scorched earth, spelled U-R-T-H. Right? That's a lot of fire, baby. Have a great day. We love you all. Bye now.